Welcome to the Temple Flame here on Hermetic Temple Radio. Good morning, everybody. This is Ralph from the Temple Flame here at Hermetic Temple Radio. And we've been kicking around some ideas about going live on a regular basis. Trick is just trying to find a particular time that I can commit to on a week-to-week basis. And I think we're going to be doing this now, 11 a.m. Central Time on Sunday mornings. So that will be our live programming. And here on Hermetic Temple Radio, and particularly the Temple Flame, we like to talk about non-sectarian spiritual topics, looking at spirituality not from any one particular religious point of view, but just focusing on spirituality that can pertain to practically anyone, regardless of your spiritual walk or spiritual path. Everybody can have a spiritual practice, even folks that consider themselves to be, not religious, irreligious. We all have a spiritual side. The trick is that spiritual people see that spiritual side, and non-spiritual people don't. So spirituality is something that I see as very wide, very broad, a very open field. And we all have our different understandings of spirituality. We call our brand by different names, but in the end, I think we're all following some rather similar practices and even some rather similar paths. So today, the topic I'm going to focus on is talking and listening to the world of spirit. And think about how we communicate with one another. When somebody talks, do we listen? Sometimes our listening skills are not the best. And this was brought to my attention quite a while back by an old feller that I met in an AA fellowship, which, Alcoholics Anonymous, another great source of spirituality if you're a person that's needing to get into recovery from addiction or alcoholism. And this guy was talking at a meeting about the art of listening, because we had a lot of newcomers in that group. I was among one of them that really needed to learn how to listen to what the old-timers were saying, because we were just having a hard time getting and keeping sober. And he was saying that, most people, when they're listening, they're not really listening. They're listening, and then in the back of their mind, they're thinking of how they are going to respond, what they are going to say next. But rarely do you find people that listen for the sake of listening, rather than for the sake of responding. And that kind of went over my head at that time, but it's something that really stuck with me for a few years after this guy gave that little talk. And finally, when I did get into sobriety and get into long-term recovery, I've been sober now for going on 14 years now, so it's been a long, strange trip. But back in those days, 14 years ago, 15, 16 years ago, I really had a hard time listening, and I had a hard time keeping sober. But I would always go back to that talk and think, okay, what was old Casey trying to say, trying to communicate. And eventually I did learn the art of listening to what was going on in the AA meetings and what was going on within me and what was going on spiritually. And I began to grow, heal, and recover. So, but there's a deep truth there that most of the times when we are listening, we're not really listening. Our focus is not on listening, it's on talking. And talking is really what people tend to focus on too in their spiritual life, at least in the beginning. Because when people are on a spiritual path for the first time, or in a religion for the first time, talking to spirit, we call that prayer. You know, in a lot of different spiritual traditions, that's called prayer. And when you are in trouble, isn't that the time that you do your best praying? When do you tend to pray? I mean, is it when everything is going good and you just say, hey, thank you, God, thanks, Goddess, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Lord? You know, do you pray when things are good in the beginning? Or do you tend to pray when things are bad, when things are negative, when you are in a heap of trouble? And I think especially with people who are new to spirituality, new on the path, our best praying is done when we are facing times of trial and things are not going well. And that's when our prayers tend to be, God, why me? What the hell is going on? If you're the kind of person who wants to be honest in your prayer life, yeah, your prayers may take on that kind of a tone. What the hell is going on here? And we focus on talking to the world of spirit, talking to the God, Goddess, the divine of our understanding. And we all have different understandings of this same eternal truth. But we spend time talking. We don't necessarily spend time listening, especially even in our human contacts. You know, if we are in trouble and we want to communicate to other people, hey, I'm in trouble here. I need help. I'm in deep, deep, deep trouble, and I don't know what to do. If you've ever been in a situation where you're offering advice, trying to offer someone advice who is facing a very difficult period in their life, you may be offering some very good, valuable advice, and they're just not listening. They're just so busy talking about the trouble that they're in that their ears aren't open to be able to listen to any possible solution that you are trying to offer, trying to avail to that person. It could be a friend, it could be a spouse, it could be your children, but a lot of times they are just so wrapped up in their trouble that their ears aren't turned on for listening to any possible solution. And we see that in our human life. We see that in our spiritual life. If you've ever seen the movie Bruce Almighty, kind of an old film now, but it's got a cute part in it where Bruce is driving down the road. He's got his prayer beads that I think his girlfriend gave him, and he is praying, you know, God, why me? What the hell is going on? Send me a sign. And immediately after he says, send me a sign, this big truck appears in front of him with all kinds of road signs. And the road signs are saying, yield, stop, look out. And Bruce doesn't see the significance of that event. And he just sees that the truck full of these road signs is going so slow that he has to pass it because he wants to go fast. He's mad, he's irritated, you know, he's PO'd, and so he wants to get around that truck, and he gets around that truck and ends up wrecking his car because he asked for a sign. He did not heed the sign. He didn't even see the sign. It was just way, way, way over his head. And that's the way it is with a lot of us, especially in the beginning of a spiritual walk or getting into a spiritual path, or even if you're not interested in spirituality whatsoever. You're in kind of a wrong place. You're in kind of an odd place if that's your attitude at present. But even if you're not interested in spirituality whatsoever, when we are in times of trouble, and no matter if we're trying to convey a message to the world of spirit or convey a message to our best friend or somebody out there that we think can help us, we usually are so focused on talking about our trouble, and sometimes very forcefully, but we're not very well focused on listening to the answer, listening to a possible solution that someone else may be able to convey to us. So that's how I see prayer and meditation. Prayer is the time that we talk to the world of spirit as we understand spirit, to the God of our heart, to the divine of our understanding. Prayer is our time to talk. And again, we need to be thinking of this not in terms of getting what we want, but we need to be thinking of this in terms of a relationship. And usually, again, when we pray, it's asking for things that we want. And that is, I think, natural. It's normal, especially for folks who are just beginning a spiritual path. Even for folks who've been on a spiritual path for years, sometimes we can slip into that give me, give me, give me attitude. But we're so focused on asking for what we want that we fail to give thanks for what we have and to show gratitude for, the things that we have been given, for just being able to draw breath on a day-to-day basis. And that's another pearl of wisdom that I learned from that old timer. He's left this earthly realm now, but back 20 years ago, he was a font of wisdom, and continues to be a font of wisdom for me today as I kind of go over in my heart and mind the things that he communicated to us. But he would always say, when times are tough, get an attitude of gratitude and just focus on finding something to be grateful for. Lift your spirit. These days, I think in the spiritual circles, we would say, raise your energy. You got to raise up your energy. But lift your spirits, raise your energy. Find something that you can be grateful for, and let that give you a little bit of a good feeling. Raise your spirit, raise your energy, and then use that higher energy to go out into the world, do your work, do whatever you need to do, and work through your life situation, whatever that may be. But have an attitude of gratitude, say thank you to the world of spirit, build a relationship with the God or goddess of your understanding, just like you would build a relationship with somebody that you're friends with, somebody that you want to become friends with. You don't just walk up to somebody on a street corner and say, hey, I'm flat broke, I've got banking problems, could you loan me $10,000? Something that we would not normally do. Usually, before we make a request of somebody, especially something of that magnitude, we would say hello first. We would want to build a relationship first. We would want to get to know them a little bit better and let them get to know us a little bit better. And then once we build a relationship with that person, then we can start, expanding on it a little bit. And maybe if we know that, we're in deep financial trouble and they have the resources to help, or they may know somebody with the resources to help, then we can, cross that bridge and ask them for help. But first you build the relationship. And it's the same with the world of spirit. For those who are just starting a spiritual path, find the time, take the time to just get to know the God of your heart, the God of your understanding. It could be, I think, ideally, if you were raised in a religious tradition, a religious walk, a spiritual path, to start there, to how was God, Goddess, Spirit presented to you as a child, and then build on that and grow using that foundation. But you have to establish a foundation at some point. The spirit of your understanding could be just being out in nature, listening to the birds, listening to the rain, and having the understanding that you may not know exactly what it is. You may not be able to really put your finger on it, because after all, it is a spiritual entity. We can't really put our material fingers on it, even though in my frame of thinking, my philosophy, this spiritual entity is contained within the material world, but it also transcends the material world. So we can't quite put our finger on it, and yet this entity has brought our finger into being. And that's the beauty of just spending time out in nature. You can come to a mental conclusion that there is a higher power, a power greater than yourself, whether you call it God or something else, source, it's just all up to you what you choose to call it, but there is a power greater than yourself. And even for those who were not raised in any kind of religion or any kind of spiritual path, you can spend time out in nature, or just open the window. If you can't get out in nature, open the window and listen to the rain, listen to the wind, listen to the sounds of nature, and just let that teach you something about the higher power of your understanding. And that comes through the practice of listening, through the practice of meditation. And when we're trying to start a spiritual path, we have to find a balance between talking and listening, between prayer and meditation, between asking and saying thank you. And we also have to find time just to hang out with the higher power of our understanding. Just like, we need time to be able to hang out with our friends, whether they're, whether that time is spent, actually in the same room with our friends, or FaceTime over the computer, over the internet. We need to be able to spend time with our friends to kind of keep that relationship going, to help us to feel good, help them to feel good. And it's the same with the world of spirit. We have to spend face time with the world of spirit. And that can be done through the art of meditation, through the art of very deep listening to the world of spirit. And this is something that anybody can do once they see that it is possible, once they see the value in doing it, once they see, and I don't like using the word value, because usually when we talk about meditation, we do tend to focus on, the benefits. That was a mistake that I made when I first began teaching meditation, probably about 2 decades ago. And I'd focus on, this is why you should meditate. It helps you mentally, it helps you physically, you can use meditation to help you with high blood pressure and this, that, and the other thing. I used meditation to finally get into recovery from alcoholism. One of the most important tools that I used to get sober was meditation. But the best meditation is the meditation that you do not to get something, but just for the love of meditating, just meditating out of love. Not everybody starts there. I certainly did not. I started meditating because I was in a heap of trouble. Physically, I was a wreck. Emotionally, I was a wreck. My family life was a wreck. My finances were a wreck. And I knew I needed to make a major change in my life. I didn't exactly know how. So one of the recommendations that came from a couple of my sponsors in AA at that time was to focus on prayer and meditation. And so I took a deep, deep dive into meditation. Spent about 3 hours a day in the practice of meditation. An hour in the morning, a half hour to an hour in the afternoon, and then about another hour to an hour and a half in the evening. And that brought me back to a state of sanity. It began to calm me. It began to heal my body, mind, and soul. And using the tool of meditation, which I hate calling a tool, but that's how I used it. Using meditation, I was able to finally find recovery after having been a raging alcoholic for probably about 30-some years. And I've had coming up on 14 years of sobriety now. So, yeah, a long, strange trip, but that's how I got into meditation, because I needed something, and I needed something huge. I didn't just need a favor, I needed a series of big favors. And utilizing the practice of prayer and meditation, I got that. But then I began to see meditation and prayer, it's not just about getting what you want, not just about getting what you need, but it's about building a relationship of love with the higher power of your understanding. It's about learning how to grow into a better, more loving person. And once you reach that point in your life, then that begins to show in your life. And people will become more attracted to you because you're not behaving like a jerk anymore. You're not behaving like, well, an a-hole. I guess I can say that in a spiritual broadcast. But yeah, you're not behaving like an a-hole. You're behaving more like a full human being, more of a loving human being. Yes, we get angry. Yes, we tend to curse from time to time. Even spiritual people will do that. Some perhaps more frequently than others. But I mean, that energy of love comes into our heart, and we become more open to it. And when we are more open to that energy of love, we become more loving people. We become more balanced people. And before the practice of prayer and meditation in my life, I was way out of balance. I mean, all I wanted, of course, when I was an alcoholic was to find my next drink. That really, sadly, was the most important thing in my life, was finding that next drink. And when days came where I, couldn't buy alcohol, couldn't get alcohol, God, I was a nervous wreck. It was like my life depended on getting that next drink. I was just that badly addicted. And I mean, I was just way the heck out of balance. But finally resorting to simple practices. I mean, there is nothing really deep about getting started in prayer and meditation. You can take it to very deep levels, but getting started with it, it's very simple, nothing deep at all. Just a practice of being honest with the higher power of your understanding, talking, listening, taking the time to listen, and then working it out from there. And slowly, over time, if you're willing to give the practice of prayer and meditation, especially the practice of meditation, if you're willing to give it like 6 months and see what happens, then I think you will begin to find some benefits. Meditation isn't a magic bullet. It's not a cure-all pill where you sit down for 1 hour of meditation and magically all of your problems disappear. No, it's more of a long-term process. It's beginning meditation is like beginning a relationship with another human being. It is a long-term process, especially, the process of marriage. A very long-term process. If you don't view it as a long-term process of growth, then it's not going to last. It'll probably end like, I don't know what the average divorce rate is in the world today, but used to be when I was a minister, people would ask me, couples would come up and say, hey, preacher, would you marry us? And my first reaction was, I will do the wedding for free. And they'd be happy to hear that. But then I'd throw in, but if this marriage doesn't last, I want 10% of what your divorce lawyers get when this marriage ends. And I would say it, joking. But I never had anybody take me up on that offer. They said, oh, we'll just pay you $50 now. So, but yeah, if you're not listening, if you don't have that long-term attitude, the attitude that you're going to build a long-term relationship, then the relationship is probably not going to last long-term. And if you're not building the relationship out of love, then that's not going to last long-term either. And that's the beauty of meditation. It gives you the ears to be able to listen with. It opens up your heart where you can begin to grasp certain truths that we can't quite get mentally, but we can get it in the heart. We can get it on a spiritual level. And then we begin to awaken to the wider range of possibilities around us. We begin to see not like a horse with blinders on, but as a human being with both eyes open and even our third eye open. And we begin to see that big picture. And it all starts with the practice of prayer and meditation, and I would say especially with the practice of meditation. Now I'm going to pause here. We're going to play a soft, gentle song by Yuri Limikins, and we'll be back right after this.
Oh, don't you see, baby, the time when you away, it makes me feel so lonely. So what else can I say? Touch me gently, my dear, like only you can do. I wanna just stay here for a long, long time with you. Summer rain, here comes the summer rain, washing out your sorrow. Summer rain, warm and tender. You know in my life, baby, you are my special prize. There'll be no dark around me, for you have lambent eyes. And touch me gently, my dear, like only you can do. I wanna just stay here for a long, long time with you. Summer rain, here comes the summer rain, washing out your sorrow. Summer rain, warm and tender. something like this.
All right, and it just occurred to me while listening to that song, here we're talking about the summer rain in December. Even the winter snow can be a beautiful object for meditation if you don't have the summer rain. And just watching the snowfall can become a spiritual experience when you allow it to be. So there we have it, prayer and meditation, talking and listening to the divine of your understanding. And when it comes to prayer, I mean, everybody does it whether they realize it or not. All thoughts can be seen as prayers. And the most common prayer out there in the world today, it's not necessarily the Our Father. It's not the Glory Be. It's probably the prayer that I just simply call the God damn it. Because, I mean, it's just so common to hear that in the world today. And that is, believe it or not, a form of prayer. Even, people who do it unconsciously, out of reflex. It's just putting that energy out into the universe that says, hey, God of my understanding, I'm really mad, and I want you to kill someone for me. I say that jokingly, but I mean, that's the feeling that a lot of people can get. God damn it, God damn you all to hell. Wow. Try not to swear on spiritual broadcasts, but, time to be honest, that is a very, very common prayer. And we can use it as a starting point. A lot of people see that as blasphemy. But, I mean, if you're the kind of person that just has that feeling welling up when things are getting rotten, things are bad, let that be your starting point for building a better relationship with the God of your understanding. It's okay to let God know you're angry. It's okay to let Goddess know that you're angry. But you have to also be able to listen back to what the divine of your understanding has to say in reply to you. I think of the prophet Jonah in the Old Testament of the Bible. The prophet Jonah was told by the God of his understanding, hey, I want you to drop everything, go over to Nineveh over there and tell those people they've got 3 days. I'm going to wipe out their city. Jonah didn't want to go. He went the opposite direction. He fled from the God of his understanding. And then, of course, the God of his understanding arranged it for him to be swallowed up by a great fish or a whale and deposited on the shores of Nineveh. And he went for 3 days, did what his God wanted him to do. And then when 3 days had passed and the people of Nineveh had repented and changed their ways, the God of Jonah's understanding decided, I'm not going to destroy these people after all. They're like lost sheep. They're like people that don't know their left hand from their right hand. I am going to show mercy because they have repented. And God repented too. And when this happened, Jonah did not feel like a successful prophet, which in fact he was. He delivered an unpopular message to a people that were not willing to listen to it. He delivered that message. They listened to that message anyway. He caught the ear of the king of Nineveh, and the king repented. He convinced the people of Nineveh to repent. And, he was a major success. But Jonah was not operating from that higher level of love. He was at that lower level of anger. He was angry at his God for making him go to Nineveh and then preaching that message. And then when he didn't see the hellfire and brimstone raining down on the city, he was really PO'd. And God finally broke through and asked him, why are you angry? And Jonah said, I am angry because you promised to give me a show of hellfire and brimstone, and nothing happened. Here I'm probably the laughing stock of the people of Nineveh. I told them they were going to be destroyed in 3 days, and now here it is, 5, 6, 7 days later, and everything's peachy down there. And, God tried to explain to Jonah, I had mercy on those people. I showed compassion to those people. I realized they didn't know what the heck they were doing. They were like lost souls that didn't know their right hand from their left hand. And I had mercy on them. Shouldn't you have mercy on them too? And Jonah was just brutally honest with the God of his understanding. And the God of his understanding worked with that. And we don't know, the book ends at that point where God is trying to reason with Jonah to become a more loving human being, a more loving child of the divine source. But that's the starting point that a lot of people have. I think all of us have that starting point where, things are not going well. We are angry. We are mad. We are PO'd. And some people that want to kind of cover that up, mask over it. They don't want to see the dark side within themselves. What they'll do, instead of being honest about it, they'll just go to church, synagogue, mosque, whatever, temple, whatever your tradition is, and just put on a happy face and say, oh, I am so happy to be here. I am so blessed. And then leave the temple, leave the church, and then just go right back out there in the world, all, mad and angry and just acting like a regular human being rather than a spiritual being. But that's the starting point, and we all have to start somewhere. And the best thing to do, be able to sit down in those quiet times and talk honestly with the higher power of your understanding. If you're mad, let it know. If you're happy, let it know. If you're grateful, show that gratitude. But yeah, start wherever you are at, and don't just get it in your head that your higher power will only love you when you're good. My understanding of at least my higher power is that my higher power is a God of love, God, goddess of love, a being of love, a being through which we all have our beings. And this being of love will love me at my best, will also love me at my worst. And it is the practice of meditation that allowed me to see this truth and allowed me to see, okay, if God can love me, even at my worst, can't I do the same and love me at my worst and then love God at the same time? And that's the beauty of meditation. These doors, these understandings begin to open up when we spend that time in the practice of honest prayer and meditation, and when we learn to achieve a balance. If you're an angry person, swearing all the time, that is a good starting place, but leave the door open to grow beyond that. A lot of people can communicate very well using 4-letter words, but over time you have to add a few more words to your vocabulary to be a better balanced person. Try some 4-letter words, 5-letter words, 6-letter words. Just expand your vocabulary, open your heart, expand your consciousness, your awareness, and let yourself grow, both physically and spiritually. So that's about it for now. We're going to wrap it up. Next Sunday at 11 a.m., we're going to try going live again. I've noticed in the live stream we've had a couple of hiccups. Hopefully the recorded part of this broadcast will come out pretty well. But yeah, we're going to try going live again next Sunday, 11 a.m. Central Time. And we'll see you then. Till later, take care. Be open to growth. Be open to prayer and meditation. and do it in a way that works for you. That's the important thing. Do this in a way that works for you. Until later, this is Ralph signing off. Catch you next Sunday.